close to the router, so...
I know. Well, that's what I'm thinking. Are we live? Hello. Hello, people. Possible. It's like the old days doing it like that, isn't it?
It's the Studio 2.
It's our second studio. We've got 2 studios here at
Welcome to the relaxed finale.
4020. It's our final live episode of the year.
We haven't told the guests that, though.
If it's still live, I mean, we kind of look. I'm almost in shock. I've got the word live above my head. That's good. Phil's
live or live.
Live. 4020 live. Phil's ill. Phil, what happened?
I sat next to Robert Hicks last week. There's an invoice in the post.
James, you survived though.
Well, it's the immune system. It's been tested out for the last 2.5 years with having a little one, so it's getting better. And I've started on vitamin C and vitamin D tablets. I decided that since I turned 40 this year, that I was invited by the GP this week to go for my my health checkup. That was kept a secret. Nobody talks about that, do they? You get this phone call to say you are officially old. You're invited to come for tests with the GP.
Blood pressure tests.
Yeah.
Of course, I don't have it when I've been to
so
a game.
I keep getting texts to say I passed.
It's very much end of season, isn't it? And Liam Claffey is here, who last time we spoke to was on Zoom in the bad old days.
In COVID, yeah.
In those times.
Back in those days.
But, and now you're not even in rugby league anymore.
No.
You've escaped.
I finally got a life outside of sports, yeah.
How are you?
Very well, yeah. Very good.
What are you doing now?
I work for a charity in Sheffield called Support Dogs, so we train assistance dogs for people with disabilities, seizures and children with autism, so yeah. Bit of a step change, but yeah, really, really good.
We need more dogs in rugby league. But not in the Eddie Waring sense.
Well, there used to be a dog that, I don't know if, well, not a dog, but there used to be a fan that used to take a dog, a Wakefield Trinity fan. I don't know if he still does. But I remember judging a game at Salford, and there was an injury, and Tim Roby was on the other side, and all he could hear was this dog barking at the AJ Bell Stadium. At least he didn't run on the field. So.
Well, it's a well-behaved dog, isn't it? As opposed to some fans. You can't trust fans.
No,
you tweeted something about lambs, didn't you?
Yes, this was at the NFL yesterday. They had kids riding lambs in Denver.
Well, if that isn't pre-match entertainment, I don't know why it is.
Catalans had the ball this year, didn't they? So why not? What's the news this week? Apart from Magic Weekend.
Samoa are back.
Samoa are back. Samoa are coming.
Are they?
Well, it's being renegotiated.
You don't get the emails from the International Rugby League, but the International Rugby League...
They're brokering the return of Samoa.
They're sorting it out.
Oh, okay.
Or possibly just whispered in their ear, by the way, you're not coming in our competition.
Yeah.
Oh, can we? Yes. Off you go. So, looks like that might be being renegotiated.
So all that
Magic's at Elland Road, which everybody's universally delighted about.
And we're the number 2 rugby podcast in Austria. So hello to all our Austrian listeners. And we are in the actual Austrian sports charts in 43rd position, just below someone's about cycling, which apparently is big in Austria, and lots of football ones, including Die Bayern Woche mit Kerryhau und Conan Furlong. So we're coming for you now, Kerry and Conan. We're coming for you.
Break out the schnitzel.
Yeah. Magic Weekend. Well, you don't have to stay over, Phil. You can go to both days if you want. Yeah.
Walk there, come on. I cannot understand the hysteria.
Well, as Robert Hicks mentioned last week, we do like to be negative.
I don't think it's that. I think, first of all, you need to define what is Magic Weekend for. Because if it was an expansionist tool, why haven't we got a team in Edinburgh? Why haven't we got Celtic Crusaders still? Why did Newcastle Thunder have to reinvent themselves after, 6 or 7 years of having Magic? It's never been an expansion tool. Now, we haven't got a team in Liverpool because we once played it in Anfield. If you look at the dates moved through the 17th, 18th of August, no Premier League football ground was going to be available of a team that is likely to be in Europe. So that rules out Newcastle, Liverpool, Manchester United, Manchester City. We've just had 3 test series in the midst of the traditional areas, none of which sold out. So you'd be foolish to take it outside of the traditional area, because then you're going to again have to spend money that you don't have in what is likely to be the last year of the event. What are you actually left with? And the thing about Elland Road is it works on 2 accounts. One is it works for Sky, which is the main reason why we do it. That it's a venue that they will be able to put all their cameras up at with relatively low cost. And I guess the other thing is that to the people outside of the sport, it will still be an event where all 12 teams turn up at a recognised venue, which no other sport can do. So, like, yes, we can get hysterical that we're not going, but 60,000 of us went to Newcastle for 5 years running. Nobody from the North East really was there. We were never given the percentage figure of Geordies that were there. It certainly wasn't the same as when the World Cup kicked off there. So if this is your last year, if you are looking to cut back on cost and provide your broadcaster with what they need, Elland Road probably is the only venue in this part of the world that you could take it to. Yes, it's dilapidated, but it's about the fixtures, isn't it? People may not stay all day. They may go and watch their team and be home for tea, but it will still stand up as an event if that's what we're trying to create, and it works for your broadcaster who pays for it. So I genuinely don't understand some of the hysteria surrounding it, because it's like everything, isn't it? A lot of the people who complain will be the ones that don't go.
Well, my favourite part of the hysteria was Jordan Lilly saying that, let me directly quote him, because I don't want to get the quote wrong and then people be upset that I've misquoted him. But his opinion on it is as well as mine as a fan of a team in the Championship. I ain't going to be going, am I? He's a player in the Championship. He's not got no chance of playing there. How does this appeal to the fans in any shape or form? Says Bradford halfback Jordan Lilly. Who cares what Jordan Lilly thinks? Because he's not playing. He's irrelevant. It's what Gareth Ellis said in his book, as reported by John Davison last week. If the players want to say in the running of the sport, they've got to grab that opportunity, and they don't. So,
Well, I think the other thing is they will still enjoy playing at Elland Road, because it's.
Well, he won't, because he won't be there.
But it's a major stadium, isn't it? So if it's for the players to have a stage that they don't normally play on, when Leeds played Castleford there, was it 2-3 years ago when Headingley was being redeveloped, 23,500 people went. They weren't all Leeds and Cas fans. It was an event. The World Cup semi-final, Australia, New Zealand. Of course, we'd have loved more people to be there, but it felt like an event. So I get that it's not an ideal stadium. I get that the idea of going and staying over there, you're now not going to do it. But are we really detracting from whatever Magic Weekend, or have we just forgotten what it is?
I've never really understood the concept, if I'm being brutally honest, is that we go to these areas and 6 games of rugby league over a weekend is a hard sell to even some die-hard rugby league fans. So to getting a local populace who maybe not know the sport or interested in the sport, then go along to an event that is 6 games sort of back to back is that hard sell. But you hit the nail on the head beginning. What is it? What is the benefit of going to Cardiff, Edinburgh, Newcastle, Manchester? We've still got Salford, Swinton, Oldham, but haven't got a team in Manchester. What is the benefit? What are we going there to achieve? Is it to get local people interested in the sport? Is it a weekend away for the rugby league die-hard fans? We've not really sort of come out and said what that is. So again, what is it? So yeah, I don't get some of the hysteria. We had 3 games obviously with the Challenge Cup, the women's final and the 2 semi-finals. We had a World Cup game there, which for me was probably the best game of the tournament, sort of Australia, New Zealand in the semi-final last year. So yeah, it's not the best ground, but again, if where they're going with Magic Weekend is looking to get rid of it potentially, then yeah, it's a shame. But yeah, I don't get some of the hysteria with it.
I think for me, it comes back to money, as we keep coming back to, which is that ultimately it's an event that does not make money.
It makes a little bit. It washes
negligible.
its face.
It's negligible. If the event made a load of money, it would be here to stay, and that for me it doesn't. And so, as you've rightly said, I think they're trying to be measured in their approach. And actually, yeah, the stadium's not the best, but there are facilities around there that you could create a fan zone. And I get a fan zone is not the same as being in a city centre where you can walk out and do whatever you wish. But there are facilities where you can put up a big marquee, or there's the Centenary Pavilion where you can do that, and people do walk from the city centre out to the stadium. Now I appreciate you're probably not going to go back to the stadium if you do walk there, but I don't think it's the worst idea in the world. And as I sort of said, if this is going to be the last year, then they're still having the event. It's not perhaps to the same extent. And the other thing I would ask is how many people, or what's the percentage of people that have gone to previous events have gone for the day or gone for the weekend. I would think still quite a lot of people go for there and back in the day, because it's still quite expensive to stay somewhere in Newcastle. I mean, that's been one of the criticisms before, hasn't it, that hotels have whacked up the prices once the event's been announced and people are having to pay through the nose for it. So you can never win. I actually think, for all that people have moaned about it, I still think people will go to the event.
I think they'll get probably 35,000 for day one, maybe 25,000 for day two. If you add that together, that's the average we tend to roughly get for. But it'll be in a stadium that is slightly smaller, so the atmosphere will actually be better.
Should be, yeah.
So we'll see. I mean, again, the talking points when there's no action on the field. Oh, let's criticise that as a venue. I'm not sure Roger Jones got it exactly right in.
One of the biggest and best stadiums in the north.
Not sure that's true. I think people have seen through that bit of it, but no,
it's a nice chip shop there across the road.
Gravely's,
used to go there all the time in the Radio Yorkshire days, as you can probably tell, and Subway, of course. The corner shop's nice. So it's alright. There's an ice rink down the road, bit of ice skating. It is what it is, to use that awful phrase. But as you say, what is the point? Is it just a weekend on the pop? To put it more politely, then.
Well, you see a lot of stag do's going to them.
Yeah.
And increasingly, sad to say, a lot of fighting actually in the stands.
Well, there's
some
a police
fighting.
station across the
Yeah,
road.
so
We've got that covered as well.
They've not got far to go.
I know.
Well, it's the age-old question with the summer bash, isn't it? Was that a great success for Sheffield in the dim and distant past?
No, cost money. I think the benefit for us was that it was, when it was on Sky Sports, it was an event. So again, for the players and certainly myself personally and the staff, that we didn't have that limelight shone on us. Sort of for 27 rounds of the year, we had one day there. We was actually on Sky Sports. Sort of the friends and family could watch it. Our players back in Australia, their family could watch it. We had that sort of additional buzz to the game and things like that. So there was that benefit for us.
Did that have a commercial implication, a positive implication? You know, if you were going to a commercial partner to say, you know, we will be on TV that date and we might get 2 or 3 other games, I'm guessing probably not.
No, because it was that one off. If it was consistent, we could say actually we're on for X number of games a year and consistently, then yes, maybe. But again, no respect to like Premier Sports, that wasn't a sell for anyone because they didn't really know it. Again, Sky Sports was a little bit of a sell. The biggest sell for us in my time there was the 1895 Cup and the fact that we went to Wembley and it was part of Wembley and we could sell additional sponsorships and warm-up shirts for that, and again that was on BBC, albeit the red button, but it was on BBC red button, and that was the biggest sell for us. But in terms of the Summer Bash, no, it was depending on your league position, you took central distribution, you paid towards the event. So again, if you finish higher, the more you pay for it. But Sheffield at the time didn't have the greatest fan base, obviously growing now, which is great for the club, but it wasn't a well-received concept amongst fans at Sheffield, certainly. So it was it sort of cost the club money, really.
I'm the only person who liked Blackpool. Well, I think the last year when it was in York.
Don't sell Kiss Me Quick hats in York.
In York, no, it's a bit too.
It's not the same getting rocked with York through it, is it?
It's a bit too.
Well, they have John Bull. John Bull's not that far away from York, is it?
That was the best man on that prize as well. One of the players got a huge sticker rock. Yeah.
I did get to hold Matt Horton's giant sticker rock one year in Blackpool.
Pardon?
Well,
Exactly.
Again, you can tell it's the last one of the series, can't you? Standards are slip.
But why are we going to Vegas? The NRL's going to Vegas, Phil. Playing money, they're going to Vegas. Where's the Magic Weekend in Australia held?
Brisbane. Which I think is
That
the home
famous
of one of the
expansion
teams
round
that play in the competition.
So they
it's
should
not
have had
an
it Headingley,
expansion.
shouldn't they? That's what you're saying.
Well, yeah, I mean,
No, but I'm saying again,
Well, it's the same
we're
argument
making
that-
a huge fuss about something
Yeah.
that they've taken our concept and everybody says, oh, they've done it better. No, they're taking it right in the middle of their traditional area to actually one of the clubs that plays in the competition. And nobody's going, oh, well, we can't have Magic Weekend because Brisbane will get an advantage.
Yeah.
They just get 60,000 people there because everybody wants to see all the teams in one place.
in 12 months' time, we'll be sat here and people will be moaning that Magic Weekend's been cancelled, as AMG wanted it to be. Never mind. At least we've got the Challenge Cup final here, got the Grand Final.
Well,
here.
I think that is the other thing that hasn't been taken into account is moving the date to where the Challenge Cup final was. Rules out some of the places where you would have. You're not going to ring up Arsenal or Spurs, even if you could afford to hire those places, because again, their Premiership season is going to be starting, and they're both likely to be in Europe, so it starts even earlier for them. So
Yeah, the Leeds United fans weren't happy when that press release went out on Twitter either. They're going to ruin the pitch.
You might be in the Premiership, but you won't be in Europe.
Yeah.
They're never happy.
And actually, when you look on social media at Las Vegas, there's quite a few dissenting voices from people in Australia around why they're doing it, and there's going to be nobody there, and that's
well,
you
they're
know,
talking now about selling out,
yeah, and
which is ridiculous if that happens. If they get a crowd of 65,000, that would be ridiculous.
I think what I was trying to say by saying that was that sometimes, no matter what you put on social media, you'll just be hounded.
Yeah.
You're not going to get a load of people saying, "Oh, wonderful, great idea."
If it's announced at Newcastle again, people saying, "I've not got enough disposable income. It's an expensive weekend, so move it to Leeds," and then you can't win.
Yeah.
So if we copied the Vegas plan, we'd just have Wigan Saints and Leeds versus Cass in Nottingham or something, as the on the road
Comparing Las
fixtures
Vegas
were.
to Nottingham.
Well, they've got Hooters. They've got Hooters. There you go. Got there eventually. It's just taking a game on the road, as we did 20 odd years ago.
I think this is a strategic effort by the NRL to expand their markets, and they're not looking at necessarily going to Perth or Darwin or Adelaide or Tasmania should it have a ground. So they've sort of touched that, and they know that they can probably take Origin there and sell that. They are looking at opening a brand new market, which is predominantly a betting market, but they've also managed to get
TV
Fox
deal,
One,
yeah.
which I think is a subscription channel,
Yeah.
but it's still a very well known and sport orientated subscription channel. That they are talking about potentially selling out a 65,000 stadium. Now, we've heard the word sell out many a time in rugby league and found that half the people that are supposed to have got the message clearly didn't. But there's a real feel good vibe around it, which I just don't think there is around the concept of Magic Weekend.
But it's then what comes off the back of it. So again, we played.
I think they'll go for 5 years.
Yeah.
So I think
That's
there
what
is
they-
something to come off the back of
Yeah.
this.
Because obviously with England against New Zealand in Denver, that was sort of happened. Nothing happened again, and I know the promoters around it, they had issues. But again, with the NRL and the betting side of it is massive. And again,
Yeah,
and
I think if they do it for 5 years as an exhibition, as an event, then it works. If they're doing it to spread domestic rugby league in the USA, which they're clearly not,
no.
it probably wouldn't work, or it would be judged as having not worked. But to fly in, show the best of what you can do, and fly out again and do it every year, it is on a par with what the NFL have started doing
In here,
in London and Germany. And again, you don't really need to know the teams that are playing. You
It
just
works.
go,
It's an event, yeah.
I need to go and see that and bet on it.
I don't think I could name any of the players I saw when I watched the Jacksonville Jaguars play the Buffalo Bills at Wembley, but I enjoyed the event.
Gareth Ellis said the same.
Yeah, and there are small pockets of people who will play touch football or whatever it's called, the American football version afterwards. But as long as you go there, this is the problem, is that we all think, right, if we do this, then we're going to suddenly everyone in America is going to think rugby league's great, and they're all going to play rugby league. Whereas they've actually got this big handling sport there that's fairly popular. Some people might watch and they might go as an exhibition, but we don't need to be thinking we're going to build NRL America off the back of it.
No, I think the potential it has is exactly what it's being used for, and that is to break into a betting and broadcasting market, so that when the rights come up for the full NRL season, an American company might be interested. And if they are, then suddenly the sport itself is a lot more valuable, and the sponsors that you can probably go and approach and probably even secure in the knowledge that you're being seen by potentially 90 million people in America, it's just massive.
Yeah, it's that what fun could run. You say like people think that it's going to go from this to this, and it isn't. Like baseball's just finally took a game to London at West Ham's ground, and that's been years in the making. And again, they've got a plan off the back of that to keep coming over here for years to come. But again, there's no domestic game over here for that really. And again, it's just growing the sport, and then hopefully off the back of it, a broadcast deal here and generating more and more interest. So that's where it is, and yeah, great. Hope it works.
After a 1 month reign, 3 week reign as champions of the Fastnet Kilty Trophy, you have to get it the right way around.
Right way around.
Yeah, England are champions again.
Brought home the silverware.
In a, quite frankly, brutal display of rugby league. There's some cheating going on that pitch. Sin binning, could have been a red card, perhaps pulling wheels back. But the brave
High
English.
tackles.
Was that a French referee friend
No,
officiating?
It was Ollie Cook. There was a French sideline referee who he kept going to. The great thing was, you got the feed without the commentary, but you got the referee's mic.
Yeah.
So you got the atmosphere. There was a brilliant French band in there that was
Definitely Scotland the Brave.
playing Roll Out the Barrel when England scored. Yeah, but there was a good atmosphere. But all you could hear was the referee talking to the players, which added to that sense of knowledge. No,
Calm down.
It
Calm
usually
down.
does listen to the
Calm
referee.
down.
but Ollie Cruikshank kept going over to the French official on the far side. Who
Speaking French.
No, it was in broken English. But clearly, every time you went to him and said, "What would be your decision?" He was disadvantaging the English or awarding something to the French. But it wasn't quite the World Cup final. No.
Did Ollie speak in?
Ollie was strong enough to overrule.
Did Ollie speak in that English, but in a French accent? You know, when
Yeah,
you
slow it down.
Yeah, slow it down. But
So what would be your?
Excellent.
But it was a great performance from England. Thoroughly deserved to win. Got back to doing some of the things that they did really well in the World Cup. And an interesting quote from Seb Bashara afterwards, who didn't play, saying we probably have dwelt a little bit too long on being world champions and we now need to look at 2026, which I think you'll find who the bidders are later this week for that World Cup. Bidders being two. Won't take a lot to work out in the southern hemisphere which two
Australia
bidders it
and New
might
Zealand.
be.
Yeah.
But that, apparently they are both intending on bidding, which again is good. But that'll be the last time that obviously all three World Cups are played together. So let's hope Wheelchair carries on this trajectory of bringing us fantastic action. And yes, they played like the two best teams in the world, but England were very good this time.
34-18, we think, was the final score.
That was definitely the score.
I mean,
Even though we had three different scores.
Missed the first try as well because I couldn't get the link to work, which was a bit of
It's a shame that what was it on? Was it on
Well,
YouTube
Our
or
league, wasn't it? Yeah.
what was our league?
Rich
So,
Rich
I'm there.
found a link.
So,
This sounds dodgy.
well, no, 2 o'clock I'm on the radio, aren't I, on a Saturday afternoon. So I'm
I don't know,
I'm trying.
are you?
Yeah, surprisingly, I am. I mean, I'm on the radio now, but don't tell anyone. So I'm there on the Our League app. I'm trying to refreshing madly, but on the Our League app on broadcast schedule, there's nothing scheduled. There's no thing at the top of the page saying, "Come and watch the wheelchair game. It's coming up later today." There's something about open age applications, which I don't care about. I want to watch this game. It's the two best things in the world. And eventually, I can't remember where I found the link from. Maybe just I think I accidentally found it, and but it was unlisted on YouTube, so you wouldn't be able to find it if you didn't have the link. I don't know if that was a rights issue or whatever, but
I mean,
they
that's
don't
just,
make it easy for
no. That's just gonna say that's the downside to it, because I forgot it was on until and I don't go on Twitter every 5 minutes is what you need to be on. But I think I saw later in the day that you guys had obviously been watching it. I thought, well, I wonder where it was on, and those people who have tuned in to watch that game on the BBC the other week would have naturally thought, I'd like to watch the next game, when there isn't an opportunity or an obvious opportunity for you to do that.
It's kicking yourself in the wheel.
Well, the wheels fell off again.
There you go. That's even better.
Well, I had that cut through that when I speak to people now, like being outside of the sport and things, and say, "Oh, what did you do previously?" and say, "Work for the World Cup," and things. Say, "Oh, and it's a wheelchair that people mention. Oh, it's brutal," and they really enjoy watching it, and they always reference the final as well in Manchester and stuff. That's what sort of had the cut through people when, obviously being BBC, England won a World Cup, and that was what cut through from it. So again, you'd hope that.
Well, I'll take my mum as an example.
Orders.
My mum would not go and watch rugby league generally, otherwise, unless I was involved in a major game or something.
Get free tickets.
Yeah.
Well, free tickets, but it's a major final or something, and she wouldn't go to ordinary
Free food
games.
as well.
Yeah. But she loved watching it on TV, and they got tickets to the final, and they got tickets to some of the group games as well. They absolutely loved it.
Yeah.
And I think that's right. You don't think you have to be a rugby league fan to follow wheelchair rugby league.
Although I've never seen a sin binning,
No, it was good, wasn't it?
which was fantastic.
So what was that for?
Possible red
Well,
card.
England got on the outside, Rob Hawkins scooting down the wing, and the French player who was covering clearly wasn't as quick. Felt the only way he could stop him was to pull on his wheel.
So like a professional
Ooh,
foul,
yeah,
basically. Yeah.
yeah.
Good to go,
Like that must have hurt his hands. I would have
burns
thought.
his hand or something.
Yeah.
But
Good to go.
5 minutes in the sin bin, which apparently is the norm for.
That's interesting, but they play 80 minutes.
But I suspect with 5 players on the field, if you're going to be down to one for.
And so was
10
there quite a few points scored in that?
There was only bizarrely England scored quite soon on the back of that, and then France scored with four players. But I've not seen a sin binning before. It was brilliant.
When's the third test? That's what we want now.
Well,
It's not the Samoa thing.
You need to know when the next game is, don't you?
Yeah.
Or who the likely opponent is going to be. Because we need to get away from it just being France. That needs to be kept as just a little bit special. And it's like Northern Hemisphere Rugby League at the moment. You've got nations that are developing. So you probably wouldn't want to put Scotland, Wales, Ireland against the full England team just at the moment. So who do they play? But I think there's scope for now starting an Ashes series. Because I think that's the rivalry that will capture. At the moment, England are probably way in excess of Australia. But
So now is the time to start the Ashes series.
A, we can win it. But B, I think they've got access to more players who they just need to develop a little bit quicker. And Jack Brown, who's come over and obviously is still the star England man, now lives in Queensland. And whilst obviously I would still love him to play for England in the 2026 World Cup, if he could coach some of those wheelchair players that England could come up against in Australia, then again that's widening the talent pool. But there's got to be scope for at some point a 3-match Ashes series, I would have thought.
What do we burn to put in the It can't be a wheel, because that'd be dangerous, and the metal doesn't burn. I don't know what we're going to burn. Someone will know. One of our listeners or viewers will know. So that was exciting. Just a shame that it just wasn't easy to find. You've got to spoon feed people.
And I think you do have to get the score right, because as I say, on official channels I've seen 3 different scores.
Palais des Sports, which sounds very exciting and cosmopolitan, but it just means sports palace.
The other great thing was the pitch was clean.
It was.
Because I know this was arranged at relatively short notice, so you wonder what facilities are they going into. But a clean floor like they had on at the FD Arena in Leeds doesn't have to make a difference.
So just to clarify, a clean floor doesn't mean somebody
swept it.
Mocked it.
The only lines you could see were the wheelchair lines.
I just thought I'd clarify.
And it was a grey coloured floor with orange lines, so they stood out really well on the broadcast.
No sand pits to go into anything like that. But the documentary. It's only now I've realised that I've actually got a slight connection to the World Cup squad that I didn't realise before. Is that Wayne Baldwin played academy for Wakefield. At the time I was ball boying. So he would have been playing while I was
throwing the ball.
Yeah. So and now he's a World Cup winner and I'm here. So
is that a connection or?
I'm going to claim it as one.
Okay.
That's as close I'm going to get to a World Cup winner. So it's as good as it gets. That's the news, isn't it? I think
it's rule changes.
Laws.
So rule changes, law changes. We need to get the term.
Well, we have laws of the game, so they're laws of the game. Some of them are interpretations.
I always get it mixed up. Do I need to go through the email that we got sent last week?
I've got it here on my phone to remind myself.
So, but not that you're here to explain every single...
No, we won't dwell on it too long, don't worry. So if you want to skip forward 5 minutes
would like
in the
to
podcast,
know your opinion.
Yeah.
I do like the phrase brain health, though. I'm assuming that's the new buzzword in sport, because Robert mentioned it about 1 million times last week.
Brain health subcommittee, you see.
So
the 6 against changing.
So, well, the first one they've listed is scrum penalties. So every penalty awarded from a scrum will now there'll now be the option to re-scrum.
Every penalty. How many penalties?
Well, offside penalties are the biggest one. So offside penalties, because some teams were deliberately because of the moving the scrum to the centre. When you got an attacking scrum, how many tries did we see from attacking scrums? 10, 15, 20 metres out. And so teams, to combat that, were deliberately going offside early, hoping they then make the tackle to then concede the penalty. Yeah. But now that would still be a penalty, or teams would have the option to re-scrum, and if teams stray offside again for a second consecutive time, it would result in the player going to the sin bin, which is what happens at the moment where there's an early detachment. I don't think there has been an early detachment on 2 consecutive scrums, which has led to a sin bin because of that deterrent. So I think that's good, and it brings it all into line. The big one is the 6 again, which is everybody, most people have moaned about, in terms of, you get a team camped down on their own line, they're trying to get away from their own line, teams deliberately slow the game at the ruck down to concede a set restart because it makes very little difference adding 1 tackle on to a set of 6 to sort of make it a 7 tackle set. So any offence that would have resulted in a set restart, not sort of from goal line to 40 metres out from their own line, will now result in a full penalty.
So should we have just put we are going to do what they do in Australia?
Basically, yeah. Which is what everybody was sort of calling for, and I think that will make a big difference. So that's a set restart. Then there's a change on the 18th player interchange. So that 18th man person could only come into effect after there was 3 failed HIAs. That will now be 2, or when a player is deemed ineligible to return to the field by an injury caused by a serious foul play, which leads to a red or yellow card, which seems sensible. There's then the rather long-winded section on reckless endangerment, which, as most people said on social media, is
John
basically
Assayate.
the John Assayate tackle is now banned. So again, I think that would be universally popular. Again, the subtlety is, or the difficulty is for the match officials is interpreting that in live play. It's more than likely going to result in a player staying down injured, because they're more likely going to result in an injury, which is what we saw in that game, and then they may have the benefit of replays, which leads on to the green card change, which they're saying that it will no longer be used at championships, it'll only be used in Super League. No reference to Challenge Cup there though, but presumably will be included in the Challenge Cup, but it doesn't reference that in the press release.
Maybe only in the later rounds.
Maybe. And it will only be shown to players of the defending team, so not the ball carrier. Which I don't really understand that law change and why that's been changed, because one of the reasons for the introduction of the green card was to try and combat when players in possession were feigning injury because they felt head contact. The referee hadn't seen head contact and chose not to penalise head contact. Players then in possession stayed down to force the game to be stopped, to allow a video replay in the hope that they could then get the offender sin-binned or sent off. So with the tightening up of foul play, that's my concern, that we may encourage players in possession staying down as a result of that law change. Having said that, I think, as Robert said last week, they're looking to introduce, I don't know what they called them, head spotters? Concussion spotters? I don't know what you'd call them, but yeah.
Give them a fancy.
Brain health spotters, maybe.
Yes.
Is this what? I mean, it could be the in-goal judges who give them something to do.
I think
Give them a quick
one would hope that
trick.
they're
They might be
medically
more
qualified.
medically
Well,
qualified.
yeah. Well, it's a bit wobbly. Wasn't it?
So I suppose having somebody independent there, in theory, they could drag a player off later. But my concern still remains is that if a player chooses to stay down, if head clashes are likely to lead to sin-bins or sending offs, and there's a head clash that's gone unnoticed, and a player decides to stay down, we're going to see, I think, more cards as a result of that change. So I think of all of them, I think they're all welcome. I think my only concern will be in relation to the green card amendment.
And then next we'll have what also Rob was hinting at but hasn't come out yet, but the recommendations on brain health, which will be any contact with the head will be deemed a red card, even accidental.
Yeah, I don't know. The detail will be interesting, but I think from what I understand, that foul play is going to be tightened up on head contact, that which will include head clashes. Probably in one sense makes it easier for the referees, because they've got a very set structure and almost a bit of a flow chart, which is kind of how it works in rugby union. In rugby union, they pretty much start at a red card and then come down if there is mitigating circumstances to a lower outcome, whether that's
like
a
a player
yellow
slipped
or a
or
penalty.
something.
Yeah, so that you can recognise mitigation. Therefore, you come down from red to say yellow, for example. And I think it'll operate in very much the same way in rugby league. So I expect an avalanche of public opposition to that in round 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and right through to round 27. I think, because it's here to stay. And I think the press release does also talk about what we discussed last week with Robert around. They're not changes to the laws, but just clamping down a little bit more on the ruck, trying to tidy the ruck up, encouraging players to play the ball or make an attempt to play the ball with the foot,
which we have every year at this time.
We do, and I think my concern with the playing the ball with the foot, I think it's easier for referees to just say players must play the ball with the foot. Now, inevitably, as a referee, you're probably not going to pick up every single occasion where a player does or does not. And you would hope that when a try scored, the TV company do go back and look at every single play the ball to determine whether he missed it by a millimetre or not. But once you get something that's black and white, it's easier to apply. There's no element of interpretation. It's a factual decision. Has he played the ball with the foot or not? And you either see it or you don't see it. But I think.
But it's attempt as well, so you need to be on your feet.
You need to be up and on your feet.
So
Yeah.
even if your studs go over the top of it, you're making an attempt to play the ball, which should exonerate the referee from giving a try when perhaps somebody hasn't actually been seen to.
Yeah, it'll all come down to the discussions going behind the scenes amongst the referees as to how they interpret that application of making an attempt to play the ball with the foot, because ultimately the policy has said that for a number of years and we've not really applied it. So it's down to how that is applied, really.
So when these law amendments come out and you're sat there at your desk, you're thinking, going to do this, going to do that. How do you communicate that to everyone within the club to say, well, this is what you're supposed to do now?
No,
Shall I answer that?
No,
then? How it should be done.
To be fair to the RFL, credit to him. When I was at Sheffield, we used to have a match official come down and sort of run for a training session with the lads. So we had Nick Bennett, because he was, I think, local to Sheffield, come down most evenings around this time, around Christmas time, to sort of train it through the coaches first, and then train it through the players as well, and then do a presentation as well, which I think was really, really good. But again, it's old habits die hard, isn't it? So it's very hard for players who've gone through something for such a long period to then change the ways, and again they're sort of doing something for 80 minutes a week. Potentially it's very hard for them to then change the way they've done things. But yeah, I did quite like that, and hopefully they'll be carrying on that going forward as well.
I think that's what you said last week, that when are the referees going to the clubs? And
Yeah,
they need to do it more.
They will have been offered. Each club will be offered the opportunity, I would imagine, on several occasions. Certainly this season. Previously, it's probably been maybe one. Sometimes people have gone twice. Some clubs choose to decline the offer and don't want match officials to go in. I don't know why you would do that, but most clubs accept the offer, and as Liam said, the referees would generally go and present either to the coach or the players, very, very briefly, and then the main task would be to go out on the field and referee a sort of a trial game, really.
I think the other thing that came out from that, whether implicit or explicit, and will be again reinforced with changes regarding high tackles, is that they want less people in the tackle. And I don't know if it said specifically we're going to call held a little bit earlier so that the Asiata tackle, it's a late-ish tackle, isn't it? It's coming in after the player's already been held up. So I think that dynamic's going to change a little bit. The idea being that it just makes it look cleaner, and
that's a challenge though for referees, because I'd have to relook at those tackles, but I'm pretty sure one was on Walmsley, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure he still had leg drive. And where a player is still moving forward, an attacking player in possession still moving forward, the referee will not call held. If he's stationary upright and is looking to succumb to the tackle, the referee will call held. And the only problem that you then get is you potentially limit the offloads off the back of that, because
the late ones, for
sure.
sure.
The late offloads, players will look to turn in the tackle to offload, and then you might get an increasing number of occasions where the referee calls held and then has to send the ball back. But maybe better that than you end up with a player with a serious leg injury. So, but for what I was trying to say really was that for every change you have to think about the consequence of the change and how that might impact on the way the game looks or the way the game's coached or played.
Does Paul Wellens get some of his fine back? Because he was fine for his comments on that.
Well, presumably Christian Wolf does, because all he talked about during the test series was quicker play the ball. We're now going to have a quicker play the ball, tidied up. So he was probably right.
Here's Phil. Why not that Phil? Why did they refuse to bring in the captain's challenge?
Well, I don't think they've necessarily said they're not bringing it in, have they? I mean, I know we discussed it last week. One would have thought it would have been mentioned in the laws amendments if they were going to do, but I think it's more to do with logistics, isn't it? Which is what we talked about last week. Not every game, not every stadium has a big screen. The confirmation as to the number of cameras available at each TV game probably hasn't been determined. It's probably not been determined whether video referees will be in a bunker or whether they'll be in the ground, and so until you really iron out all those questions, you can't then look to implement a significant law change. And people, I think, don't quite understand how significant the law change is. Yes, we operated it in the World Cup, but it probably didn't operate quite in the same way as it did in the NRL, and the replays were a little bit slow at times to come through. That has a knock-on effect for the total duration of the game from start to finish. We moved games back to 7:45 for TV. I'm not sure if they then moved back last year to 8 o'clock. If you're not careful, if you're with captain's challenge, you're then pushing well beyond 10 o'clock, and so again,
Especially
every
we've got
change
a
you
video,
make,
video referee at every game as well, so that's going to add to it.
and with more incidents of foul play, which is well, not more incidents of foul play, with more incidents that may result in a red or yellow card from foul play, that's probably more likely to introduce the video referee giving advice to the on-field referee as to the outcome. So the total duration is likely to become longer irrespective of captain's challenge. And as Robert rightly said last week, that if you've got a limited number of cameras and you can't determine the outcome, the team retains the captain's challenge, and therefore they could end up with 3 or 4 captain's challenges that are ultimately inconclusive. And all that does, in my view, is just slow the game down, and that's the opposite of what we're trying to do. We're trying to increase the speed of the ruck, and then at the same time you introduce a captain's challenge, which just slows the game down. So I think from a referee's point of view, it's great if it can get you out of a hole where you know, I've been there myself. You think, oh, I think I've made a mistake, and you're almost thinking, please, can you challenge it and get me out of this? And you know, that's the situation where
I can imagine you going up, going, and if you want to, you can challenge that. I wasn't thinking of doing it, but if you want to,
referees were doing that when it first was introduced into the NRL, to stop players sort of saying, oh, no, that's wrong. Well, you can challenge it if you wish, and then suddenly they back down. Oh no, we don't want to challenge that. So.
Tony's asked us if Catalans got fined for their fans running on the pitch like Lee did. I don't think anything's been announced about that, has it? It does always take
one of the
months and months.
Well, one of the things Robert said was not every decision gets communicated, which I'm not sure I agree with.
No.
But if there is agreement between the parties, it's not always made public.
I don't agree with it either, because you know, every charge or non-charge by match review panel is communicated, and why not do it in the same way, really?
It's one way or the other, isn't it? You've communicated all.
I think so.
I think you don't necessarily need to do a press release. It could just go onto the RFL's website, and if somebody really wants to go and find that information, they can look at it.
Yeah.
Someone will sneak it on there. If you sneak it on there, people will find it. So a year on from the World Cup, Liam, how was it for you?
Amazing, to be honest. I've said to everyone it was sort of best experience I've had. Best organisation I worked for, from sort of John Dutton down to everyone else. It was just really, really good, to the point that I think it was the culture working there, so much so that we had our 1 year reunion last weekend. We had about 30 people all come out of Manchester reunion.
Were they all on bikes?
No, they were. No, there wasn't. None of the biking lot were there. Unfortunately, these are due in Edinburgh, I think, or Glasgow. There's the cycling championships up there. So, you know, really, really good. And I think we talked about the wheelchair, but that for me, that was the cut through, and that was the best thing about it. Sort of putting all tournaments together and giving the women's and wheelchair the sort of same platform as the men's. And again, obviously, for me, it's disappointing going forward that they'll be split in years to come. I'd like to see them together, because I think giving them the same platform, giving them the same broadcast, giving them everything the same as the men's, and treating them the same, down to like the buses they had, the hotels they had, everything like that. It was a fair treatment across the board. So yeah, we sort of stuck to our guns with that one. There was things we messed up on. I'm sure people said it obviously on social media, some of the ticket price and things, but again, we stuck to our guns. I think there's a lot of, in rugby league, that late sell, and people waiting for discounts, and the discounts never came, and then people got angry at that we didn't have discounts, but we actually said we weren't doing discounts from the off, so some people got annoyed with that. But yeah, no, for me it was a brilliant tournament, and again, the legacy off the back of it, which is sort of front-ended a lot of places. So again, that bricks and mortar for a lot of clubs, like down in South Yorkshire for me, Doncaster Toll Bar got a brand new clubhouse, new pitch and floodlights and everything like that. It looks brilliant now. So that's sort of the lasting legacy, that 10, 15, 20, 30 years time they've still got that clubhouse there, they're still generating their own income from that bar and the clubhouse, and it's sort of leading that legacy there. So yeah, brilliant. I wish I could do it all over again, really.
Where were you in St James's Park when?
I wasn't.
You weren't there?
No, so I was stuck in. I was at Headingley, trying to watch on a TV screen in a bar in Headingley, and the sound wasn't working. So
the sound wasn't working in Newcastle.
It took about 2 minutes to realise actually what was going on, and then a WhatsApp group started to go a bit awry as well. And sat with about 20 Rugby League World Cup volunteers, the power squad, and we was all sort of trying to figure out what was actually happening. But no, I did suggest on a WhatsApp group, I was going to sing Kaiser Chiefs last weekend on karaoke and just drop the mic halfway through and walk off, but it didn't go down too well. But no, that was very disappointing. That took a few days for some people to get over, certainly.
I mean, we were there, Phil. I remember you saying the apologetic statement was like, things just happened.
Don't apologise for things you've got no control over.
Yeah.
make the best of it. But no, I remember that day because we did both games, didn't we? Rather foolishly, belted out of Newcastle to get legal to get to Leeds, and that was a fantastic day. Kicked it off absolutely brilliant.
I completely agree with you on the splitting of the World Cups. Do you think it's purely a financial thing? Because obviously it must cost a lot of money to hold 3 tournaments and all the athletes and going
yeah,
on.
It did, and there's a lot of logistics around it. And again, I think obviously I came in sort of 12 months ago, so I was we was in that sprint phase and we was delivering and sort of leading through. So again, I didn't see the work going on leading up to that. But yeah, there's a lot of logistics around it. And the government's got a lot of faults, but again, the government supported it and they continue to support it. And without that funding, it wouldn't have happened like we saw with France. It wouldn't have happened without any of that funding sort of thing. So it is a huge amount of job and a huge task. But again, if we're looking sort of the Southern Hemisphere and the way they do the domestic game, I don't see why not they couldn't host 3 tournaments at the same time, because they do domestic tournaments so well. I don't see why they couldn't do that as well. And again, just keep them together and keep giving them that platform, because I'd like to think that having them standalone that they'd get the same platform, but again I think they're not potentially there yet. But hopefully. So yeah, we'll see. But it's disappointing for me.
Can I ask a personal question? So, did you leave Sheffield Eagles to join the World Cup?
It was 2 things really. With Sheffield, I felt I was sort of coming to my end of my tenure there. I'd done 5.5 years. We had the stadium that they're now in, the Olympic Legacy Park, which I know has got there's some issues with, and they've got the new stadium announced, which is fantastic. But in terms of, I sort of worked really hard on getting him back to the city. We've been in Doncaster, we've been up to Wakefield, we've been here, there, and everywhere. Sort of in my tenure, Rotherham, we've been everywhere. So we had like sort of 8 venues in the space of 6 years that we used. So for me, it was getting the club back to the city, getting them on a sure footing, and again, a lot of the work that went on behind the scenes in terms of relaunching the foundation and bringing Andrew Dobson in, and now Richard King doing the Heritage Project. All that was sort of in the offing before I left, so I thought it was on a sound footing that I could leave the club in good hands and capable hands. And obviously Mark Hannigan and David Butler within the foundation now sort of leading it all, which is great, and to see him go on and progress. And obviously they've got the funding behind the scenes now as well, which is good. But I wanted that new challenge. There was an opportunity with the RFL and the World Cup, and I sort of weighed both up. It was either a long-term contract with the RFL, or I knew I was sort of out of a job sort of 12 months time with the World Cup. But people I spoke to and the culture and like I spoke about was really good at the World Cup, and I wanted that experience and to sort of go and help deliver something. And then there was that final end goal, because obviously sport, it never ends, like they always say, like sport never ends. Like you watch your team year on year, but we actually delivered an event, and then to look back on it and again reminisce about it last weekend with friends from the World Cup was really good. So yeah, no, it was for me personally. I thought I wanted to move on. I'd done my time at Sheffield.
So would you have liked to go back into sport ideally at the end of the contract?
No, I was generally looking at other sports. So a lot of colleagues went to the cycling championships up in Glasgow. I looked at that, but my personal commitments, I wanted to stay based down in South Yorkshire and things like that. So that didn't appeal. I looked at a couple of jobs with Sports England and other places, but again, it wasn't the right fit for me. So again, I went to work for Barnsley Council for a little bit, and sort of waited until see what right opportunity came along, and this opportunity came along with Support Dogs charity, and really nice charity. And again, sort of joining the senior leadership team there has been really great for me. So yeah, I missed some aspects of it, but there's a lot behind the scenes that goes on that I'm sure you know, and people that work in Clubland.
So what does is it a general? What was your title? General manager or
yeah,
general
dogs body? Yeah, dogs body. Yeah, so
dog body, is that it?
Yeah, so there was essentially me and Mark, and then Mark Hannigan, the commercial director.
Did you get a medal when you left for working so closely with Mark for all those years?
No, I got a. To be fair to him at the time, Chris Noble, when we won at Wembley, I had sort of sleepless nights leading up to organising that trip down to Wembley for the 1895 Cup. Chris presented me with a nice shirt, a signed shirt from the players for that, which is now up in the office at home, along with a Cook Island women's shirt, which we all got to at the end of the World Cup. We all got given the opportunity to pick a shirt from the men's, women's, and wheelchair.
I mean, now I'm jealous.
I picked the Cook Island women's team just because they was the best team to deal with. I had a really nice time with them up in York, albeit I didn't know that actually because of their funding they borrowed the men's shirts, so it's technically a Cook Island men's and women's shirt I've got, but it's signed by the women's team. So yeah, no, I really, it was for me personally. I thought I wanted to move on. I'd done my time at Sheffield. Yeah, didn't get a medal. Got a nice signed shirt though out of it. But
Do,
yeah,
do you think there's an economic case for keeping an organising team together? So that we're going to learn the bidders of 26.
Yeah.
So would it have made sense to keep 4 or 5 key organising individuals, say, right, you're now in the Southern Hemisphere for the next one, and then even if we have split them, and probably even more the need to keep people together and go, right, well, 28, 29, 30, there's going to be World Cups, going to need a hell of a lot of organising. The likelihood is they're all going to be in different places. So your core...
Yeah, definitely. I think you look at what World Rugby's just done it, so World Rugby sort of changed their model, and essentially built that model, so then they own the tournaments, and then basically they're putting that sort of top strategic people together and then leading the tournaments here for 2025 with the women's, going to America and the World Cup there and things like that. So yeah, definitely, because it's sad to lose people from the sport, because again, the likes of John Dutton, he was sort of a really good leader. He sort of was in the team, he sort of mucked in with everything, and he was a really, really good leader. I think sort of the best person I've worked for in terms of that leadership, and then to lose him to British cycling is a shame for the sport really, but I fully understand why he's gone there and the opportunity he had.
And there will be a handover, I'm sure, at the end of every World Cup there'll be a debriefing for...
Well, there was with France, but that did...
it's in a file somewhere in Paris.
But there were photographs of them up the Eiffel Tower or wherever they were, weren't there? John Dutton, I've seen it on social media, that was,
But
wasted.
presumably what you learnt, you're not now going to be able to put into practice. So you'd think that each subsequent World Cup, if that core of people were together, it's a smoother operation because you know what the pitfalls are.
Yeah, I mean, France came over a few times. France 2025 came over a few times and sort of did a bit of knowledge sharing. But again, you could sort of see it early doors that they didn't have the staff and the infrastructure. And again, that they was looking to expand the tournament as well, wouldn't they? Have a youth tournament as well. I was just thinking that in terms of their staffing levels and where they're at, that they had a long way to go in sort of a short space of time. They had sort of 3 years really, 22, 23, 24, and it was a worry. So when the news did come out, it wasn't the biggest shock in the world for me, I don't think. But yeah, there is some knowledge sharing, but there was more sort of back to government and Department of Culture, Media and Sport, who essentially give the money to the tournament to make sure it was spent well and we delivered it well. So again, there was a lot of knowledge sharing there, and I'm sure a lot's gone back to International Rugby League in terms of hopefully whoever bids and gets the next tournament as well, because my role was essentially looking after our hosts, which was our host towns and cities. So I think around 38-40 bid in total across the UK, and that now we're down to the 16/18 we had. So likes of Preston and Liverpool didn't host games but then hosted teams as well, so it was good that they bid for it, they wanted it, put in that monetary value but also additional values in there as well to sort of hotels or stadiums are sort of bidding together. So again, Sheffield for example, the council led on it, worked with the university to then basically make sure they had the right training grounds, the venues in terms of Bramall Lane and the Institute of Sport, and then the hotels as well, and all sort of work together for a bid. So again, that really helped in terms of one, saving costs and keeping costs down on that front, but then having that buy-in locally, and then again promoting it as well, because they've got that backing of it, and they're in with it. So again, bids as well included like local promotions. So again, with Sheffield we had like local promotions through advertising that the council sort of leverage as well, discounted costs and their different channels. So yeah, I'd like to see that go forward as well in terms of, hopefully, again, I appreciate there's not as many cities in Australia and things like that and New Zealand, but again, bidding for the tournament, not just going right, where is a rugby league heartland, let's put it there, actually expanding the game and going where there's some monetary value to it really. Like people looked at Tees Valley and we took a game to Riverside. Appreciate it was only one game, but again, Cook Islands were based there, had a fantastic time there. There was a really engaging sort of Tees Valley Combined Authority, really engaging. They put a lot of backing behind the tournament. So again, appreciate the crowd was low. It was sort of a bit of a dead rubber game, high scoring, but everything behind it as well sort of made it
the crowd's only low if you never go back there.
Yeah.
There was actually something to build on, like there was at Bristol in 2013. I think the other thing that would be interesting from hearing it from the outside is you will have dealt with a lot of players, and the one thing that we found was that whilst there's a lot of talk of the seasons are too long and you've got to protect them, all of the people we spoke to, whether they were heritage players playing for Ireland or whether they were Brazilian women who had probably never been on a trip like this before, the players really wanted a World Cup, and that the IRL saying it's the pinnacle of the sport and we need to promote it as being elite, which again means that they're cutting back on some of the number of teams, so you'll lose that cultural element of it a little bit. the players want it.
Yeah.
You know, New Zealand were absolutely heartbroken, both men and women, when they lost in the semi-finals, and have rebuilt themselves to now beat the Australians in the Test matches that we've seen this autumn. But I suspect the reaction you got from all the players was they really wanted to be here.
Yeah, and again, dealing with them sort of on match day -1, as we called it, the day before when they came to the stadium and they did the final training runs and things like that. That the professionalism behind it, I've got to say, sort of with the structure that World Cup put in place in terms of all of that down to, we had sort of volunteers who were embedded with the teams, team liaison officers, and essentially we had them on a WhatsApp group and we could monitor them on the bus and see where they was and location, just down to those intricate details. Then we knew they were coming to the ground for broadcast and things like that, and everything around that was just so professional. And again, I think the players bought into that, and again it gives that feel of actually it's a World Cup. It's not it is a World Cup, albeit it's a smaller World Cup than rugby union or football or whatever it may be, but again it's that World Cup and it's that pinnacle, and putting that professionalism behind it and going, wow, look at this. And again, appreciate some crowds might have been smaller, but again, having all the games on BBC, look back at 2013 and there was 6, 7, the rest on Premier Sport, having all the games on the BBC as well. And again, those athletes being able to say, I'm on sort of national television on Monday night in the women's semi-final on BBC Two and things like that, it's just, yeah, incredible. And it was, yeah, really fantastic experience for me, and something sort of, like we say, we always sort of treasure. And going back and speaking to everyone last week, everyone's sort of in different jobs, in football, in cycling, in some still in rugby league and elsewhere, Wimbledon and England rugby and things like that, and just like sort of reminiscing and going, wow, how good was it? And again, I think we sort of forget that. We open with talk about Elland Road and people moaning, we forget where it was last year with sort of 61 games all live on the BBC, and sort of, albeit England didn't get there, but a packed house at Old Trafford and Kevin Sinfield walking on the pitch at half time. Just when we do it right, we can do it right, and we can make that spectacle and make that show. So again, let's celebrate the good bits, not just moan all the time.
Can you take those elements of practice from an international tournament and put them into the domestic game? Well, obviously you can't. You're not going to have teams going on captain's runs at grounds they don't play at the day before or whatever, but can you take elements of that and improve how the, use Super League as an example, how Super League comes across? Yeah,
so again, I'd like to, and again, I don't know the full ins and outs, but I'd like to, again, with Magic Weekend, what is it? What is the concept behind it? But again, is it bid? Is it bid for? Do we go out to cities and say, actually, we're gonna bring X number of people to your city this weekend? The economic value to your city is going to be X. It's going to be this number of hotels filled. It's going to be sort of this number of audience on a broadcaster to sort of showcase your city. Do we do that? Do we actually go out and do that? And then again, the cities come back and bid for it, gaining that monetary value to then help deliver that and then bringing money into the sport. I'd like to see that, and again, not just for that, but then Challenge Cup final and the Super League Grand Final again. Do they need to stay at Old Trafford? Is there an argument to move it elsewhere? The Challenge Cup final, it's 90,000, and again, I'd like to think we'd fill Wembley, but again, I don't think we're going to anytime soon, unfortunately. So again, is there a case of Arsenal or Tottenham or West Ham bidding for them tournaments as well, and the club sort of getting that exposure? Because again, I think Tottenham was a fantastic venue. I worked on that, seconded to the AFL for a long weekend for that, and obviously you was there for it as well. It was a brilliant venue, amazing venue, but obviously the price of it, I don't think we'd go back there anytime soon. But it'd be nice again for those sort of local authorities to sort of within Greater London or wherever else to sort of bid for the tournaments and events and go, let's put Rugby League on the map, and again help support it, so then that money can be funneled to marketing the events and promoting the events and making it a bigger spectacle as well, like we talk about the NFL down in London, having all that razzmatazz around it as well, and making a event, not just the 80 minutes on the pitch.
I think that you make a really sensible point. I do wonder whether events like Magic have been operated like that or not. I don't get the sense that it is a bid process, and for me it should be. I mean, from a property perspective, in the last week, Leeds have just been reconfirmed for the next few years as being the host of the UK Reef, which is like the UK's equivalent of MIPIM. It's a huge event for the UK, and Leeds have hosted it for the last 2 years, and they're hosting again this year, but they've secured it for the next few years, and they were up against other major cities, and I am sure that the council would have been, I'm not sure whether they've been involved financially, but they would have been offering some sort of incentives as part of that, and I think that's what the RFL needs to tap into in terms of major events, whether that is the Challenge Cup or the Grand Final, is signing a 10-year deal with a bid.
And it sort of puts you on to say, well, we've got to deliver X, so again the RFL or whoever it may be go, right, this is what we're bringing, you've got to actually deliver that then. And also the local authority then go, well, whoever bid and wins, that part of that bid is we're going to deliver X, Y and Z, and that might be X number of pounds in terms of marketing events, we're going to buy X number of tickets for local schools, whatever it may be. Then you sort of got two parties working together on it. And again, we was held to account and had difficult conversations with some local authorities when we was getting late, again with ticket sales and things like that, and there was a panic, and again it was, don't worry, ticket sales will come. In some places they did, some didn't, but and then again we had those difficult conversations, so then it was on us to try and deliver that and push for that, and again sort of working out, right, we need to support them local authorities, but again on the flip side is how are they supporting us and making sure they were delivering in terms of that marketing, in terms of delivering the right experience to the players, in terms of the hotels, the training venues, and again getting that feedback constantly. And it was difficult, obviously in tournament you got 3 or 4 games potentially in one day, that sort of trying to work out training venues, and if there's issues with a team, can we relocate them somewhere else, and have they got issues at the hotel, is the food not right, and all these different scenarios sort of playing in the background as well. But again, it puts you to account a little bit, and I think with that, with rugby league events, we should certainly be looking at that.
Bevan French has asked, I don't think it's the real one, has asked us our thoughts on the London situation. Bevan, go, if you're watching, go watch, well you are watching because you've sent a message, go, when we're finished, go watch the interview with Kevin Rudd we did, because that pretty much sums up what we think about London. Or
you need to make that into a podcast.
Well, it's going to be on, it'll be on the end of this.
Excellent.
I'll put it on the end of this.
I won't listen to the first bit, I'll just listen to the last bit.
He is very good.
Phil's also asked us, have we heard anything more about Salford being placed in special measures? Only what you've read in the papers. We got
I think the idea of special measures is that it's only reacting to what Salford are telling the governing body, that they have financial issues, and the governing body then legislatively has to make sure that it does whatever it can to ensure that Salford don't spend beyond their means. So being in special measures will just be monitoring everything that they're doing financially. It's unlikely, I would think, that Salford will make a major signing at the moment. It may be a precursor to another player leaving, but it's almost the governing body saying we're aware of it.
Yeah, there's
I don't think they're putting stipulation on Salford. I think it's coming from Salford continually telling them that they have financial issues.
Yeah, the back end of 2016 when Sheffield had issues and we publicly was announced as having been in special measures, and it was just for different circumstances. Again, we asked for our distribution a little bit early to help basically pay our players at the end of that season when we was full time, and again different things in different ways that clubs can go into special measures. So I don't think it's a alarming thing. I think clubs go in and out of special measures at certain times, and it sort of goes under the radar a little bit. So at this time I wouldn't be too concerned about Salford. Hopefully they've put out more release, haven't they, to say that they've got more progressive and positive conversation with the council, so hopefully they get sorted. So I wouldn't read too much into it.
So how do clubs, I've often wondered this, how do clubs like Sheffield and others, that I don't know what Sheffield's average crowd is these days, but you know, some clubs are getting 400, 500, 600, 700, 800 people, whatever, as an average gate, with obviously dwindling central financial support from the NRL. How do clubs like that survive? I know we've seen clubs that some don't. Like
I think it's really tough this time
Newcastle
of the year as well, where you're not getting your match day income. So
and you look at the League One,
trying to sell your season tickets because there's a shortage in income this time of year.
Yeah, so for us it was back then it was sort of you front load your money this time of the year, so you get your replica shirt sales in, you get your season ticket sales in, and potentially some sponsors who are very generous, they might pay their full sponsorship in one lump sum. I know the club's moved into a lot better model now where the cash flow is a lot better and the sponsors are playing monthly and things like that. But again, in terms of you've sort of front load that money now, you have it sat in the bank, and then you just hope you sort of get to the end of the season. And again, it was sort of scenarios like that. But again, I think we had a away cup game at Hull KR, and Hull KR was in our division that year as well. So again, we had Hull KR in I think August at home at Wakefield, and they brought 2,000 fans, and that sort of got us through another month. And it can be sort of to them sort of degrees where you sort of playing. You're playing the roulette sort of sometimes with it, but it can be challenging. But yeah, it's tough for clubs, but you've got to again, for clubs at that level, Sheffield didn't have an asset, so again that was one thing I was keen to get the club back in the city, is that having an asset, albeit where they are now isn't their asset, it's not their stadium, but again clubs like Batley and Dewsbury that generating that income off the field, so again they've not got the income streams of going somewhere else and potentially renting a training venue costing X amount per week. They've got their own facility for that. And then
the downside of that comes though that we've got to then maintain that.
Got to maintain the costs and things like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. But then you've got obviously events as well. You can utilise it for locally and things like that. So it's tough.
So would you have been one of those clubs or people voting to or asking Cornwall to not take part in the competition next year.
No, if they're in, they're in. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think if you vote a club to be in, then you need to understand the full repercussions of it. So again, Toronto coming in, for example, you need to understand the repercussions of actually they're spending that money. They're going to be in Super League in X number of years, and then people sort of up in arms about it. Well, you knew this was going to happen. There's going to be an end process to it. So again, Cornwall may get promoted on, but all we saw now, they want to be part of the 1895 Cup, and then clubs against that. Well, they're in. You need to understand the end goal of what that's going to be, and they want to be part of it. Why cut someone off? They want to grow the game. They're down there. Why? And again, I appreciate it's a big cost, but again, that's from the governing body to go as well. Understanding for those clubs that actually putting someone in the Cornwall is going to have these additional costs and expenses and issues for other clubs. So was it thought out fully? Probably not. But again, I wouldn't have voted against it. I think they're in the game and they want to play, then let them play.
Well, Robert was here last week and said it was more to do with logistics, wasn't it? We'd have had to have found 2 more teams, but of course, one of those 2 teams you wouldn't have had to found because Toulouse are available. It's just they're excluded from, or they're invited members. Well, no, either you're playing or you're not playing, and there could have been an incentive there to bring in either a top community club. Or
Well, they've done that. They passed the Challenge Cup.
yeah, absolutely. So if you've got a facility where you can host a game, I mean, Toronto's first game in the Challenge Cup was at Siddle. Remember going to that?
We played
it was
Toronto
on-
down at London Scholars.
It was on our league or whatever our league was at those days. Might have been the BBC.
It was on BBC,
It was
yeah,
Challenge
yeah,
Cup.
yeah.
But it was a community facility that would have only have had to stage 1 game in the 1895 Cup. What a great incentive! You know, if you've won the National Conference League and your facility is good enough, you're in the 1895 Cup. You're going to be playing Cornwall and maybe Toulouse. Well, all of a sudden you've got a group there that actually is a good footprint for rugby league. Of course, there's cost involved, but you can't exclude. It's like asking Catalan to play a bond to retain the Challenge Cup. You just once they're in, you can't do that.
But then you go back to, again, we talk about Magic Weekend. People's moaning of bringing that back, but then people don't want to go to Cornwall. It's like, well, what is it? What are we doing? What is the end goal? So, yeah, no, I would have said keep him in, but I didn't have the deciding say. By the way, it was a direct. I sort of went to meetings with this is what you're saying, and that was it. I kept very quiet.
Would you have voted for IMG's proposals, or would you have put your own dossier together?
What are the proposals? There's too many. I don't understand it. As a Gemels fan now, I don't understand half of it. I think it is
Is grading a good idea?
I think it's trying to get 2 things together that don't fit. I think you either have promotion relegation or you have licensing, and I think it's sort of a middle ground that doesn't sort of meet both. I think you've not got promotion relegation really. You haven't really got licensing. It's sort of a merge of the two, and it's trying to find that middle ground, the best thing for both. And I don't think it truly will work across both. I'd like to think it would, and I think it's nice to see clubs coming out with saying, right, we're working towards this, and we're going to sort this X, Y, and Z, and we need to improve. And I think that's great, but I think
it's further helped focus Sheffield.
Because I think clubs like Sheffield definitely.
I think their investor would not have put forward his money if a grading kind of criteria wasn't there, so that he knew that if they get it right, they're likely to be a sustained top flight club. Whereas, as we've seen with other investors that haven't lasted quite as long, get relegated, they're not interested.
You don't get promoted.
Your money is completely wasted.
And I think credit to Sheffield, they're one of the clubs that sort of came out and said, right, this is what score we got, this is where we got, this is what we need to improve on, because they've obviously announced a new facility and everything, which is brilliant. The work they're doing off the field in terms of women's wheelchair, 2 wheelchair now, LD, PD, and then the men's team is again brilliant. They're not in a heartland, even though they've got 30-40 minutes from Leeds and sort of West Yorkshire. They've got all the right tools there. They just need to improve the crowds as well, but again, they know where they need to improve, and they're being told where to improve from. So I'd like to think that for clubs like Sheffield and clubs like that, it's brilliant, but I just don't know. I think the proof's going to be in the pudding sort of come July, August time next year. See who's going to near the bottom of Super League, who's at the top of the Championship, and then see what happens then, and the sort of fallouts from that, and how it comes across in the media as well, not just in Rugby League circle, how it comes across sort of for the general public. Did they understand it? Is it recognised? Because it is a new thing here. It's completely new from what we're used to, obviously, but it'd be interesting, I think. And again, people talk about, we need X number of teams. It's not about the teams, it's about that underneath it. Again, no one seems to be moaning at the minute that the Guinness Premiership's only got 10 teams. Again, there's still a viable competition, albeit the clubs have gone by the wayside. either gone by the wayside. So it's, yeah, I think it's a stopgap. ING's proposals. ING's great. I think they did a lot of good work on the World Cup with us. They're a massive organisation. They know what they're doing clearly, but I think the proof will be in the pudding. Sort of, come the end of the season next year.
They know what they're doing. Some people don't think they know what they're doing, even though they're slightly.
Even
slightly
though they're
big,
global leaders in there.
Yeah, I think you look at what they do with like UFC and that. I think they know what they're doing.
They've just employed CM Punk again. I don't know what they're doing. He's a pattern. Is there anything else we need to talk about? I'm trying to think. It's come to the end of the season. It's like at the end of the World Cup last year, I was just like this, which doesn't work as on a podcast. So you have to imagine what was doing.
He just fell off his chair.
Yeah, like I did in Newcastle.
Oh, that was one of the highlights. If only more people had been there.
Yeah, I mean, you thought that it was bad enough when Ricky Wilson couldn't sing, but actually that was probably a positive because the Kaiser Chiefs are a bit naff, aren't they? But in front of an audience of 0 people at Newcastle Central Library, I fell off a chair and off the stage. Hit my head on the wall.
Are we announcing the library tour of Mexico in this final
Well, we're
episode?
going to Austria now, apparently.
Oh, okay.
Is it not a Vegas edition? No, you're not all going to Vegas.
Seriously,
the budget run
should
to
be
that.
thinking about
Yeah,
it.
if Elland pays us, we'll go. If anyone pays us, we'll go anywhere. We're not, we're not proud.
So do I need to go and get the final round of Tunnocks?
Oh yeah,
Back on Tunnocks.
Tuesday, yeah.
Well, if it's the last one.
Should have been mince pies, I suppose, really, shouldn't it?
What do you miss? What do you miss about rugby league?
When people sort of ask me,
Because wrestling's about players who
Yeah,
retire.
yeah.
You say, what do you
I'm going
miss?
to get them.
no, go.
While you answer.
Generally, what I miss is when we won, and it wasn't many times up at Barrow or down at London, from being in Sheffield, that bus ride back with the backroom staff, with the boys, sort of that camaraderie. I miss that a little bit.
Rehydrating with water.
Yeah, with water, all
Yeah.
being rehydrated on a Sunday evening,
Yeah.
at 7, 8 o'clock on a bus. Absolutely. I miss that, but again, the World Cup side as well, that team bonding and that, I miss that a little bit, but...
Could you ever switch off from the job? Because I'm guessing it was like one of those jobs...
24 hours in a day.
It's like, I always used to say, refereeing wasn't a job, it was a way of life.
Yeah, in extent, I think probably more so, and again, I've not been in a full-time club environment, so I couldn't relate to that, but in terms of our players were part-time, so again, I'd work Monday to Friday 9 to 5, but then I'd go to training a night or two a week, but again, if they have a question or they want to speak to you on WhatsApp or whatever it may be, they're doing that at 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning before they go to work. And then at night, sort of, the coach is ringing at 9:30, 9:45, 10 o'clock after training, speaking about doing paper for signing or whatever it may be. So and again, maybe hindsight, I should have balanced my life around that as well. But yeah, you've got text coming at 5:30, 6 in the morning, then you've got phone calls at 10 o'clock at night, and then you've got the day job in between, so you couldn't really switch off from it. So yeah,
I'm sure it paid you handsomely for that.
Oh, absolutely, yeah, definitely, yeah, very well. But no, I miss some bits, but yeah, I'm glad I'm out of it now. And
Do you still watch games and enjoy it more?
yeah, I was at the England game at Headingley a few weeks ago, and I enjoyed that. I did leave 10 minutes ago though, so we'll go get to Headingley for a pint. But yeah, I still watch games. I've been to Sheffield a few times this year. I'm from St Helens, so I watched a few Saints games. So yeah, I watch games quite a bit. Probably not as much Championship as I used to watch, so watching other teams and things like that. I don't watch as much Championship, but I watch more Super League, definitely.
Donald Clark a good signing for you next year?
Yeah, definitely, yeah. Big shoes to fill. Be interesting to see who the number 3 is for Saints, because that's still open. Yeah,
Justin Elland.
Yeah. Is that rumoured?
I just rumoured it.
Oh, okay.
It is now.
Oh.
I think he might be available.
Yeah, okay.
See the new letters and numbers on the backs of shirts in Super League?
Yeah.
Not a fan of the font.
It's quite small, I think.
Yeah.
Do you think that's an IMG thing?
Well, possibly.
If in doubt, blame ING.
Yeah, it's IMG's fault. Did you ever get to design the Eagles kit? Because obviously general manager, that must be part of your responsibilities.
Yeah, but I've got to say, and again, I said I wouldn't say things after last Sheffield. Mark Aston did like to have a big hand in designing shirts.
I can't believe that.
He's got a bit of
Mark
fashion
Aston.
sense when it comes to that, yeah. He likes to design shirts as well, so... but no, I did have a hand in some, but I always say the ones that didn't go down well, nothing to do with me. So,
That'd be the first thing I'd want to do. You know, I'd definitely want to design kits. It's fun, isn't it? You need to get those Pyongyang pylon shirts out. So I think that's it then. That's 2023.
Merry Christmas.
Live programme's done. James, thank you for joining
Wow.
us this year.
It's almost festive.
Unless you,
Thank
It is, yeah.
they're not going to employ you in the punk round.
I very much doubt it.
You'll be back next year.
You'd be pleased to know.
Liam, next time bring a dog.
Definitely.
Bring a dog's allowed in the shop.
Assistance dogs, yeah.
Yeah,
Should be allowed.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Be having the shop, won't they?
Yeah.
Well, referees
Podcast
always
dog.
need assistance dogs, don't they?
Yeah, well, that's
So,
he said it.
Sponsor.
There we go, yeah.
Sponsor
Sport
the-
dog sponsor, yeah.
Sponsor the refs.
Yeah.
Thank you. How do we support you, your charity?
Support Dogs, you find us on Facebook, supportdogs.org.uk. Yeah, we're on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, TikTok. Also, X, sorry, not Twitter.
X.
Yeah, X, yeah. Everywhere, yeah, so, yeah.
And there may be a Christmas special.
There is going to be a Christmas special with a very special guest. I don't know. It's going to be good, though, isn't it? What are we going to do on the Christmas special? Because I haven't got a clue.
I think we should follow the tradition we've always followed with every show and have absolutely no idea.
Thanks for watching.